G'day folks, MBS here. Look, today I'm going to be talking about the Holden 202 cylinder head, and as you know, if you're in Australia, these are non-adjustable rockers and hydraulic lifter setup. So everything sits on a pedestal post, it's solid, it just bolts down, and nothing much you can do about it. Well, in the previous video I did give you information on how to adjust the hydraulic lifter, and that was by either grinding these posts down or adding a shim to them. But it's really not correct. I didn't give you the full information, so today I'm hoping to completely fix that up and give you all the information that you need. So this topic is changing from hydraulic lifter adjustment to rocker geometry, because basically in a 202 that's what it's all about. You're actually setting rocker geometry of these posts, and we'll cover the hydraulic lifter adjustment as well, and the consequences of what we do here and what effect it has on the hydraulic lifter. So let's get into it. I'll turn the cylinder head around because this thermostat gets in the way and we can't see the rockers properly. So we'll look at this from the rear end, and we'll see the actual geometry. I've marked the rocker specially for this video so that we can actually see what's going on. Alright, nice close-up view of this cylinder head. Now I've got no push rods, so I'm going to virtually have to lift this rocker up to where it would be if there was a push rod in there. Now, 50 years ago this would have been perfect. Okay, the rocker geometry is set by the valve stem height. That is the tip of the valve above the cylinder head or the valve spring seat. There's a specification called valve stem height. That has to be set correctly. Like 50 years ago it was. The post is screwed down and your rocker geometry is basically set. Alright. I think that's just not right by the looks of it, but I'm going to show you in a drawing I've done exactly what we're trying to chase with the 202 cylinder head. Now the push rod 50 years ago would have probably gone down into the depth of the hydraulic lifter, maybe 30 or 40 thou. Okay, that would be equivalent to maybe around about a quarter to half a turn on this bolt from having zero lash. Okay, so we back off that bolt and we get this to wriggle, and we just take it down until the wriggle is gone, and then you count how many turns that bolt goes down, and that's basically what your hydraulic lifter is set to. So when you tighten that down, this will go down a little bit into the lifter because obviously it can't move the valve. So that's your hydraulic lifter adjustment. So there you have it. That was 50 years ago what this setup may have looked like. So what's happened in 50 years? Well, quite a bit has happened actually. We've shaved the cylinder head, we've shaved the block. So what's happened here? Well, absolutely nothing. This is still the same, unless your valve grinder has incorrectly set the valve stem height. As you'll see, if he has set the valve stem height incorrectly, he's going to change your rocker geometry. So let's say he didn't grind the tip at all, he's pocketed the valve into the cylinder head, it's sitting way higher. You would end up with something like that. You've just changed your rocker geometry. Now, like I said before, I think that's a better look than that, and I'll explain that shortly. Alright, but if he's ground too much off that tip, obviously this is going to sit a lot higher up here, and the geometry is just going to be all wrong. So I dare say there's a lot of 202s out there running around with incorrect rocker geometry, and I'm going to enlighten you hopefully and show you what you're really chasing. So let's go to a schematic that I've drawn, and I'll show you what we're trying to get. Okay, the fun stuff. Alright, here's my schematic of this engine. It's back to front, of course. I'm looking at it from the front of the motor, that's why the push rod is on that side. The cylinder head is placed backwards, so the push rod's over here in the real thing sitting on the car. Alright, so when we talk about the 202 and the geometry of it, this is a fairly simple setup because the valve and the rocker post are parallel to each other. Okay, the push rod is canted out a little bit, not much, But in this example, in this engine, this is what we're looking at. Now, you would have seen that little white stick glued to the side of the rocker. Well, that's that green line. It's from the tip of the rocker through the fulcrum central point through to the pushrod socket. Okay, and that's our important angle that we're chasing. Currently, I'm showing this at half lift. All right, the angle formed here between the valve stem and that line is 90 degrees. And that is what we're chasing, 90-degree angle at half lift. So when it comes back to closed position, obviously this is going to raise up, the valve will close, and we'll end up with an angle A. All right. We go down the half lift, becomes 90 degrees to the valve stem, and then we go to full lift and we get angle B. So A should equal B. All right, and that's what you're chasing. Simple as that in rocker geometry in this engine. All right, and of course the 186, where you can actually adjust this rocker post. They have a nut there that you can lift this up and down to. Basically, that's used to adjust your hydraulic lifter. And in this, obviously, in this engine, it's set by the manufacturer from 50 years ago. Now, in a hydraulic engine, it's really difficult to set A and B and that angle at 90 degrees, because what happens is the pushrod gets pushed into the plunger and it bleeds down on you. So it's very hard to check this unless you remove the hydraulic lifter and replace it with a solid lifter so that you can carry out these measurements. Now 50 years ago this was all fine, A did equal B. Now like I said, what's happened? Cylinder head's been shaved, the block's been decked, nothing's really changed, not with the rocker geometry. The rocker A is still equal to B no matter what. The only thing that has really changed is that the push rod is now sitting deeper into the hydraulic lifter. Now that's okay. If you understand how hydraulic lifters work, then you'll understand that it's okay to push the push rod down in 80th hour or thereabouts into the lifter. Because today, that's probably where you're sitting. Rather than sitting at 20 or 30th hour, you're probably sitting at 80th hour, maybe even 90th hour into the hydraulic lifter. Hydraulic lifter still works, nothing has really changed. If you actually want to change that, if you're worried that the push rod is too deep into the lifter, only thing you can do is change the push rod length. Yeah, do you understand that? Because you can't change valve stem height, you can't really change, well you can, but in this case, let's say you can't change that. It's set, angle A is set, so if you've had 50th thou taken off your cylinder head, your push rod is going to sit 50th thou deeper into the hydraulic lifter. So the easy remedy there is to change the push rod, make it 50th thou shorter. So there you go, that's the hydraulic lifter adjustment taken care of. The only way you can change the adjustment on a hydraulic lifter is to change the push rod length. Alright, you'll also change it if you do anything with this post, but we're going to cover that differently today. Alright, so in today's world, we know that the only thing that has changed is the push rod's deeper into the hydraulic lifter. Geometry is set by your engine reconditioner or your cylinder head service. Valve stem height becomes the critical thing here. Wherever that sits dictates what angle A is going to be. So if angle A is shallow, like I suspect in this cylinder head, it's going to sit shallower, which means when it goes to angle B will be greater. So you're not going to get the correct path across your valve stem tip of the rocker tip. Alright? If it's short, like if your valve stem has been ground down and the angle has changed from there to there, alright, you're going to get a sweep across your valve, not in the centre. So the sweep is probably going to start a little bit further inboard and then end up further outboard. So this red mark on the valve stem is going to be shifted across. If you're, well, we say push rod too long because we're referring to solid tappets, but in a hydraulic car and in this car, it doesn't affect it because it's all affected by this bridge and valve stem height. Alright, so valve stem height needs to be set correctly from the start. Okay, 50 years ago is 50 years ago. Today, what's changed? Apart from shaving the head, and we know the pushrod's deeper in the lifter, what has changed here? Well, very little actually. Yeah. No one's ground the post or added shims under the post, so that's still stock standard. The valve stem is the only thing that has really changed. It's either higher or it's lower, depending on the valve grinder, what he's done. If he's put new valves in here, obviously it's going to sit a little higher. That's going to change angle A and hopefully correct the geometry from years ago, or maybe not, but we have to check that. And as I said, you're going to have to put a dummy lifter in there that's solid so you can check all this out. Now there's a little shortcut to actually checking whether your rocker geometry is correct, and that is to check the sweep of the rocker across the valve stem. Alright, so when it's sitting at angle A, closed, the rocker is going to be touching inboard on the valve stem. When you get to half lift, it'll be touching smack bang in the centre of the valve stem, and at full lift it'll move across to the outboard side of the valve, and then it'll just come back in reverse. Alright, that's what you're chasing. That's a shortcut way of finding out if your rocker geometry is correct. If you haven't got a dial indicator that you can put on your keeper here and measure actual valve lift and see if it's getting to half lift, you could take a shortcut, put bearing blue on your valve tip, carefully fit the rockers on, and then rotate your engine a couple of turns, and then remove your rocker, and then have a look at the pattern on your valve tip there. Once again, don't do that with a hydraulic lifter. You'll have to change that lifter out to a solid one. But as long as you maintain angle A and angle B, you've got the correct geometry. And to do that, we either shave that post. So if we want to increase angle A, we would shave that post. That would bring the fulcrum down a little bit. It would push this pushrod down into the hydraulic lifter even further. Alright, and if we want to go the other way, we would add a parallel shim in here. Now it must be a parallel shim, not just a normal shitty old washer. Must be parallel ground to keep that post square. Alright, and what you put under one post, you must put under the other post, okay? This post does pairs, so you have to do everything in pairs. And this brings me to another point with your cylinder head reconditioner. If he hasn't made these valve stem heights equal right along the entire cylinder head, and that's simple enough to check with a straight edge, then your rocker geometry is going to be different on every rocker. Yeah? Can you understand that? You're going to have one rocker sitting here, you're going to have another rocker sitting there, depending where they've cut the valve stem. So the first thing I check when I get it back from the cylinder head reconditioner is I throw a straight edge across the valve stem tips. If there's any big gaps in there, I throw it back at them and tell them to do it again, do it properly. Alright, so no matter what he's done, if he's set them all straight okay and angle A isn't correct, then I've told you various ways that you can adjust this post to correct that, to get it right. So when it comes to cams with high lift, one of the easiest ways to get your angle A to set up a little higher so that everything comes out equal is to add a valve stem cap. Okay, that'll lift up the rocker about 70-80 thou. Alright, obviously, once again, it's going to be pushing your pushrod down deeper into your hydraulic lifter, but you may end up getting the correct angle by doing that and getting all equal, A equals B. And that is all we're chasing for this cylinder head. And basically, for any engine, I'll deviate just a little now. If you've got canted valves that sits out there like that, or it may even sit like this, or it may even sit sideways out like that, run that test. You don't have to worry about all this geometry thing. This is only for this engine, and any engine that runs parallel stem and rocker post, this would work for them. But there are a lot of different designs out there, so the easiest way to work out what you need to do is do a trace. Bearing blue on your valve stem tip, and rotate engine over and then see what it needs. If this whole pattern here is over there, moved over to the inboard side towards the fulcrum, I would dare say that you have got too short a push rod. Okay, you see that? So this angle A will be too great, so the tip of the rocker arm will sit in there. Alright, what will happen is when it goes to full lift, it won't go right across the valve, it'll stop about here. So your whole pattern will be too far inboard. So that's too short a push rod, or the rocker post is down too far. Okay, so you need to shim it up. If it's the opposite, and you're getting a pattern that starts in the middle and goes right across the outside, that wouldn't be desirable, then you have got too long a push rod, way too long. So you would have to cut down that post to bring that angle back up to angle A. Alright, or another way of looking at it, getting you 90 degrees at half lift, so either or. Okay, well that's basically it for rocker geometry in this 202 engine. In cars that you can actually adjust the fulcrum, well, let's say that angle A was fairly shallow and you wanted to increase the angle, you would just screw your nut down on the fulcrum deeper and that would increase the angle, because this isn't going to move. So anything that can move is the post in the center, and it will increase your angle. Of course, once again, push rod goes deeper into the lifter, and if you wanted to, at the end of the day, you could put a shorter push rod in if you're too worried about that being too deep into your hydraulic lifter. So that's a way to get around that. Alright, I think I've covered it. We might go back to the real cylinder head and have a look at it. Alrighty, now that we've know what angle A and angle B should look like, do we reckon that this angle A here, when the valve is shut, is correct? Well, I say not. That would be very, very little lift on this, and I'm trying to work it out. It would be close, it wouldn't be too far off, because like I said, the only thing that affects this angle is your valve stem tip, yeah? So I'd say it's been ground a little bit, so it's sitting a little high. So I reckon we should probably be looking at something like that. Alright, but you've got to look at it and visualise it if you can. This is probably only about a 0.4 thou left, 0.4 of an inch. So if you can look at this and go, okay, 200 thou here, 400 thou here, alright. So does that look right? And when we're talking half-inch lift, okay, if this was a half-inch lift cam, I would definitely say this is wrong, okay? By the time this goes down half an inch, this angle would be way down here somewhere. Way. Angle B would be far greater than angle A. So what would we do? We would grind this post down, wouldn't we, if we wanted to rectify that? So that would bring this down like so, and increase angle A, and then hopefully when you get it onto full lift, it's going to look the same below the level line of 90 degree angle to the valve stem. Alright, so that's how you would adjust your rocker geometry. Now unfortunately, this all affects hydraulic lifter adjustment, of course, as you can understand. And if you've read my article on my website about hydraulic lifters, you shouldn't be panicking too much about that, unless you find that the push rod is pushing into the lifter quite a long way. I mean, probably something like 120 thou. If it's pushing down that deep, well, the only thing you can do there is to put shorter push rods in, okay? So all we're doing is adjusting rocker geometry by adjusting this pillar post. So we're either grinding it, which will increase the angle, or we're adding washers, which will decrease angle A, okay? So as I said, alluded to earlier, watch your tracking on the valve stem tip with bearing blue if you want to check that everything's correct. Because sometimes visually things don't quite look right. If you're not a visual type person, you can't pick the angle, then you probably better off just marking the tip of the valve with bearing blue and rotating the engine and getting a mark and finding out. Now, I told you what what to do from there, which way you had to go, whether the push rod was too long, too short, and that would give you an indication whether you're grinding the post or adding washers to it. Alright, so yeah, so that's what I wanted to cover with the 202. There's a few tricks there that you can do. Now, just as a little sideline, look, if your valve grinder has made the valve stem tip high, then I would suggest to you that your valve spring pressure is incorrect. Alright, there's another specification that that valve spring has to have a certain pressure when the valve is closed. If everything's sitting higher, because he's pocketed the valve deeper into the cylinder head, then you're going to lose spring tension, and then you run the risk of lifter pump up, which is a bad thing. Alright, in this engine, lifter pump up won't destroy anything. The car will just stop if more than 3 or 4 cylinders develop lifter pump up, and yeah, you want to try and avoid that. On the other end of lifter pump up is, of course, if your push rod is very deep into the lifter and you get lifter pump up, it is a little bit more disastrous than if the push rod was only about 30th hour into your lifter. 30th hour is the most your lifter can pump up, yeah, if it's only 30th hour deep. But when you've got it 90, 100th hour deep in, you've got way more room to pump up that lifter even further. So there's a possibility that, yeah, when she stops, you're going to have to wait just that little bit longer on the side of the road before you can restart your motor. And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of when they're setting their lifters up. They don't want the push rod too deep into the lifter. So that's where we come up with that half, 3/4 of a turn on the ones that are adjustable with the nut in the centre here. But that was 50 years ago, like I said before, yeah. Well, lots of things have changed in that time. So I may cover the other cylinder head that's adjustable, and we'll talk about the geometry on that one day. I don't know when, but one day. Alright, okay, that's about all I think I can do with this. I think I've explained everything that there is to explain. So you understand now that yeah, changing valve stem height will change your pivot point, will change how deep the push rod goes into the hydraulic lifter. So all you're chasing is A equals B. If you get A equals B, and then you want to change your push rod length to accommodate the shallower depth of the adjustment in the lifter, then you will change your push rod. Alright, and that's it, folks. That's basically how you do it. The thing you have to understand is if you're machining this post to bring them down, both sides have to be done equally, and they have to be done parallel. Alright, so a milling machine would be the best there to get those posts ground. If you're adding washers, that's simple enough. You buy parallel ground washers and you shove them underneath the pedestal post, and that'll pick everything up. I've rarely ever done that. Only once have I ever put washers underneath here. Most of the time I've ground the pedestal post, basically to accommodate high lift camshafts. Alright guys, I hope I've explained everything for you in the 202 Holden cylinder head. To give you an idea a little bit about rocker geometry and hydraulic lifter adjustment. I hope you learned something. I'll see you in another video. Bye.